Hi again. Today I'm going to talk about using eggshells in the garden. So we save them throughout the year. We have friends and family save them, and we just gather them up in these plastic bags, and then when we need them, we go ahead and process them into a powder that we can add directly into our garden beds. We toss them into the compost. They will eventually degrade, let nature taking its course. Or my favorite way to use them is crunching them up into bigger, sharp chunks and placing a thick hedge around my vulnerable baby plants as they come up to help deter slugs and snails. Now, some people will tell you this does not work, but I promise you it does if you do it correctly. I'll show you, I'll put an example in my planter of some peas that I have here. These are not outside. I don't know if you can see, but it is winter and it is pouring down rain, and I don't have any small starts outside to show you with. But if you make a thick circle around your plant and make sure there's no vegetation that can cross that path, it is an excellent deterrent. The slugs and snails do not like those sharp pieces to go across to get to your plant. One time I had a bed and I did an experiment. It was all lettuce, so it was all the same plant. Half the bed I put eggshells thickly around each start. The other half I just left them. I hunt slugs day and night and get rid of all of them that I find. And even with that, the slugs that were not surrounded with the eggshells did get some damage, did have some damage. And the ones that I had a thick layer of eggshells around them, they didn't touch them. Now, I have in the past actually seen a slug around our beds. Most of our gardening is in ground, but I do have a couple raised beds. And there was some tall grass on the outside. A slug had used a single piece of grass to slither across over the eggshells, so it used it like a bridge, and was munching on my lettuce plants. So you have to make sure that the vegetation around your plants is also non-existent, because they're smarter than you think. Let me show you how I use the eggshells. Okay, here's my little pot of peas that some of the students did. What I would do is, if these were out in the ground, because slugs do like some peas, I would make a really thicker than that even, circle around the entire plant. So this is why you have to have a lot of shells, because I make a thick path around the plant, and so that it's a bit wide and it's thick enough that there's no bare dirt showing. If you have it like just a little bit, they do go over that, but it has to be thick, and then it works quite well. Once your plants get up a little bit, then the slugs usually don't bother them so much. But when they're young and growing, they're just a smorgasbord for those little guys. So eggshells are really a great deterrent in that case for them. I've tried all kinds of things. I've tried wire scrubby things. They're not wire, like steel wool pads. I've tried putting that along the bed. I've tried copper pennies and copper and stuff along the bed. And the eggshells work the best. They're free, you know, they're just something you would generally throw away. And they're a great addition in my opinion. The other use that is really helpful to the garden is you can put them in just plain old eggshells, just big eggshells. You can throw them in your garden. Eventually they will break down. It will take a long time. They take a long time to break down. But if you pulverize them with like a coffee grinder or a food processor into a powder, they'll still take a while to break down until the nutrients are able to be taken up by the plants, but it will be much sooner. So if you pulverize it and put it directly into your beds and work it down to where the roots would be, eventually your plants will be able to take up the calcium from which the shells are made of, and a lot of garden soils aren't low on calcium, but your plants are using things up constantly as they grow. So I say throw all the stuff in. Throw all of the natural stuff in that you can find just to keep helping your soil be as healthy as possible. Throw all the leaves, all the coffee grounds, all the old food and vegetables and chicken manure, everything. Just throw it in there, including your eggshells. They really work well. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about eggshells is making like an eggshell tea. Now, I honestly don't know if this actually helps leach the calcium out into just water, but I can't think it hurts. So I haven't noticed a huge deal of difference. I think it's my imagination that they look a little perkier, but if you take your eggshells and make into a powder, like with a food processor, coffee grinder works really well, and then soak them in water. Just throw them in water, leave them somewhere for at least 2 weeks, if not longer, and then strain out the shells so it doesn't plug up your waterer, and use that water to water your plants with. That seems to perk them up a little bit. The longer you let it set, the more likely that the calcium can leach out of the shells and into the water. You can also make like a eggshell soup. You can add all kinds of stuff in that water. You can add banana peels and coffee grounds and anything that you would put in your compost pile. You can just let it sit in there and make a stinky little soup, drain it out, and use that water on your plants. And it's full of nutrients for them. As long as you stir it and keep it a little aerated, otherwise it becomes a little bit nasty. But just stir it a little bit once in a blue moon, and eventually in a couple weeks you'll have a little bit of a potion to put on your plants. So hopefully that was helpful to somebody. Don't throw your eggshells away. They're actually worthwhile to keep and use. It's like throwing money away, in my opinion. So yeah, hold on to those eggshells, throw them in your, at least if you have, at least throw them out in the bushes or something. The wild birds can eat them and take up that calcium that their bodies are using up so much when they make the eggs. Might sound a little odd, but it is actually really beneficial. Anyways, hope that was helpful. If you have anything else that you do with eggshells that I didn't mention, go ahead and leave a note in the comments. I'd like to see what that is. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. All right, until next time, see ya.